Wow, you sound like me. I was like, you want to you gotta hurt it. I'm serious. My dad's from Tennessee, and he's tall. He's 6'3". Well, he was. His dad is 6'3".
No, I said some of the girls too.
So I'm listening to him talk, and I'm like, squeezing my dad. Will you send us? So you got that. That's a late You can't take it nowhere, can you?
Hey, people young and old, let's get together and rock and roll. It's a good time. I got those I'm not sick, I'm a sick man. I'll be able to have so much fun. Probably a good cook. I got one. I might get it. Take him a minute to get up there. Hours into the bar. I remember that you had for overalls on hat. Yeah, I did that. Andy Griffin, what it was, football. I did that. When I get the opportunity to actually golf,
I don't know which one. I don't know. Pick one. I don't know. Seriously. I'm just joking. Yeah, for
sure. Welcome to the 2023 induction of the Wheaton Warrenville South Athletic Hall of Fame. My name is Rob Harvey, and I'm on the committee. I will introduce everybody on the committee, and we're looking forward to a wonderful evening. We are live streaming, so help. How many people we got there, Chef? You know? Four people watching right now. Hey, That's a 75% increase from 10 minutes ago. So we're up 75%. So no, thank you all for coming. You're going to make this a really special evening for everybody here, and we're looking forward to stories and bringing to life what we see on paper when we look through all the induction forms and pictures and all those things. So we love when the best part of this, and the reason we work all year for this, is to see all those words come to life in stories. And so we're looking forward to a wonderful evening. We're going to start off the evening right now with a video that our very own Maureen Cremend, head of Physical Education Department and head girls gymnastics coach, puts together every year. And then after that, we'll get the program started. So welcome. Thank you very much.
My name is Mike Healy. I'm athletic director here at Wheaton, Warrenville South. I want to take a couple minutes here to kind of give you what's going to happen, introduce some people, and welcome the class. Before I welcome the class, I want to make a point to thank the Hall of Fame committee. I know that I run through names usually really quickly. I'm going to try and slow down for 30 seconds. So if you guys could all stand up real quick. So all of you that know, I run through names. Go ahead, come on. So Rob Harvey that you've seen up here, Rob Kroenke, Eric Giltz, Maureen Kermend, who did this unbelievable video, Casey Gaston-Smith, Jimmy Vivian, Matt Janicek, Ray Carlini's out on the football field, and then please all the way in the back, Lisa Wave, okay? All the decorations and food and stuff is because of all of them. So if you give them a huge round of applause. You know, when I first started here 26 years ago, Dr. Baker was the principal here, and I think that many things that I learned from him, but one of the things was if you're going to do something at Wheaton Warrenville South, that you better go all out. And I think this committee, the hours that they put in, just the little things that I was joking with Maureen Kermend and Casey as they were putting some of the flowers together, and I'm like, why don't we just get the $5.99 and just put them into a vase? It probably worked for most of us in here, but they're cutting things and taking an extra hour. It's just a special group. So if you have the opportunity to thank them as you're eating afterwards, or you see them out at the football game, please do so. To the class, it's a blessing to be the athletic director at Wheaton Warrenville South. Tradition is a powerful word, and I saw many of you walking the halls as you came in. Maybe you haven't been here in a while, and I can't imagine a school that has the hallways that we have, with the plaques and the history that goes back hundreds of years. It's a special place, and I know that the class going in has created their own traditions that hopefully we still follow. They follow traditions. I know that as a coaching staff here, we talk all the time about respecting the jersey or respecting the uniform and who wore that before you. And that's important to us as coaches, because we walk our athletes around these hallways and show them what has gone on in the past and the history. And again, in the state of Illinois, I'm not too sure there's a school that has greater history than we do. So as a class, we welcome you. We look forward, as Rob said, to your stories. I know as the committee, all the work that we put in, this is kind of like the highlight of the year for us, to hear the stories, be able to appreciate you and thank you for all you've done for our high schools. After we're done today, there is food. You're all welcome to go and eat. Rob Kroenke will grab you at approximately 6:40-ish, assuming that the sophomore game is on time. And we do want to make sure that we recognize you in front of our greater homecoming community with the ceremonial coin toss. So thank you. Look forward to a great night and appreciate all you've done for our schools. Back to Rob Harvey now.
Just a really quick history lesson here. I'm going to ask somebody to stand up. I believe he is here. Where's Daryl Fitz? Daryl Fitz, stand up back here. Daryl Fitz is in the back here. Daryl is our former department chair for social studies. He put a lot of this together in the history. He was also on the committee from its inception back in 2007 or 8. So Daryl is here. Welcome you back, Daryl. Thank you very much. So I'm going to go through a few slides right here just to let everybody kind of know. The first graduates were announced in 1882. There were a total of 2 of them from Wheaton High School. Okay? Just to give you a little history of the schools here, we actually celebrate 5 separate schools in this one building. And we do honor all of these. These 5 flags that you see up here are carried into graduation. They are up here for many other things during the year, and we celebrate all of these schools. And then they're all reflected out in the out in the wonderful trophy cases, the cases that are out with I saw a lot of you looking at. So we got the first class in 1776 is when that opened, Wheaton High School. The name changed to Wheaton Central in 1964. Wheaton Warrenville opened on this site, in the home of the Wolverines, in 1972, and it closed in 1983. We have any Wheaton Warrenville grads here? Any Wheaton Warrenville grads? All right, congratulations. Then we've got Wheaton Central, closed in 1992, and we moved a lot of history and tradition over to Wheaton Warrenville South in the fall of 1992. Thanks to Dr. Baker, one of our former principals here, is here with us today. So, and with the way we've gone, who knows what will happen in the next few years? Maybe we'll open another one and have another flag, but no. We wanted to go over just a little bit of the nomination things just to let you know how this happened for all of you here, and the committee is always looking for more nominations. The athletes, coaches, and school administrators and district administrators are all eligible. As long as you have been graduated for at least 10 years, you can be nominated. You can be nominated by anybody. A coach can nominate a former athlete. A parent, we've had parents nominate their athletes before. We've had former teammates. All of those. Every year we have different nominations from different people. Coaches, school administrators, and district administrators are eligible upon retirement. So from coaching. We've had some people that have retired from teaching, but have not retired from coaching, but it's when they're retired from everything. The process. We've got forms right out on a table right out there where the programs were. They're also in the athletic office and they're on the school website. If you go to athletics, there's a drop-down menu for the Hall of Fame. Only complete nominations will be accepted. We've received things that have names, and that's it. We need a little bit more information. Team and individual honors, as well as statistics from high school, college, and post-collegiate careers are encouraged. Supporting documents are highly recommended. We realize with time, going back into Wheaton Community and Wheaton High School, those are more difficult to find sometimes. There is a lot of information there, and we also do use some of our old alums to help with some of those things. Letters of support are from former coaches, teammates, and media are also encouraged, and we get those on a yearly basis. Currently, there are over 30 active nominations. I think we just received a couple in the last couple days, so I think we've got more in there. Nominations they will always be there. They'll always be in consideration. They can be updated year to year. So that's also encouraged. All right, you can contact myself. My email address is on there, or Mike Healy, or you can talk to any of the committee members to ask any of the questions to clarify anything. So we're going to start with the class right now. We are going to, we usually go in alphabetical order. We're helping out a former Tiger here because he's got to go be an athletic director for a different school right now. So he's going to, we're first going to induct Jack Nelson, but first we're going to bring Bob Quinn up, athletic director from Naperville North, former athletic director for Wheaton Warrenville South, to introduce Jack. Bob Quinn.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you. First of all, I want to begin by saying congratulations to all of the inductees this evening. As a Wheaton Warrenville High School graduate and a former Wheaton Warrenville South teacher, coach, and athletic director, I'm humbled and honored to be here this evening and offer my appreciation to you and congratulations, but my appreciation for your work towards our community. As Rob mentioned, my name is Bob Quinn. It's my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce Jack Nelson tonight. This is my 38th and final year in the world of education. I spent 23 of them here at Wheaton Warrenville South. In reflecting about this evening, I've come to know that we and I are truly blessed. We in this auditorium are all blessed. It's incumbent upon all of us to know how fortunate we are. Wheaton Warrenville South is a great American high school. We have wonderful parents and families, wonderful students, wonderful teachers and coaches. Not every high school can say that. We can say that about our community, and we're here to celebrate that tonight. So thank you, and I need people to know how blessed we are. This is a great place. I treasure the relationships that I have with my former players. That certainly includes Jack Nelson and his family. They are one of the reasons that I've been and had such a fortunate career. In an effort to explain why we're honoring Jack tonight, describing him only as a baseball player is short-sighted. While Jack is a great baseball player, and I'll talk about him as a player, he's much more than that. I will tell a few stories tonight to exemplify the multifaceted Jack Nelson. Let me tell you first of all about Jack the baseball player. Jack was a 3-year starter for the Tigers. Wheaton Warrenville South. Jack was a 3-time All-DuPage Valley Conference player, 3-time member of several all-area teams, as he started as the top-hitting first baseman and left-handed pitcher in the state of Illinois during his career. In the spring of 2002, Jack would sign a national letter of intent to play baseball at the University of Cincinnati. As a Bearcat, he became a 4-year letter winner, was named ESPN The Magazine All-American in 2006. Upon graduation from Cincinnati, Jack would sign a professional baseball contract to play in the Houston Astro organization. Jack would star in the Appalachian League for his single-A manager and former Cubs star Ivan DeJesus. Jack would later sign a contract with the Traverse City Beach Bums of the Frontier League before retiring in 2008. If you want to be a great baseball coach, surround yourself with great players. Jack made me a very, very successful coach. More importantly, let me tell you about a story about Jack the brother. We were driving home from a baseball game one day in the white minibuses that we would use to get to and from games. I was driving and listening to the players banter in the bus, as I often did. As we pulled to campus, one of the players made a wisecrack about the band that was practicing in the grass. Jack jumped all over his teammate. He thundered on about how important the band was, how hard-working the band was, how they worked as hard as the baseball team did to represent the Tigers at the highest level. The band's an important part of our culture at Wheaton Warrenville South. You see, Jack's twin sister was a member of the band. Jack loved his sister. He loved supporting his sister and her friends at every turn. Great leaders do that all the time. Jack supported all, including his beloved sister Jennifer and the band, regardless of what others said or thought. Let me tell you about Jack the student. Jack received his undergraduate degree in finance and international business from the University of Cincinnati in 2006. He did all of this while maintaining a 3.6 grade point average. 2 years later, Jack was conferred his master's degree in the science of accountancy from the University of Notre Dame. He did this while carrying a 3.4 grade point average as a graduate student. Jack and his wife Janice currently live in Oakland, California, where he is a performance auditor for the United States Agency for International Development for the Office of the Inspector General. Jack is a leading expert on international energy markets in Ghana, Nigeria, and Kenya. Jack epitomized the often overused term student athlete. Let me tell you about Jack the humanitarian. In the early fall of 2011, I got a phone call as I was sitting at home. Hey, Coach, I need a letter of recommendation. Of course, Jack, what's the new job you're chasing? Coach, I'm going to join the Peace Corps. The Peace Corps, Jack, what's going on? This was his direct quote. Coach, I'm not making a big enough difference in the world. So at age 28, while all his high school and college buddies were making money hand over fist and running around Wrigleyville in Chicago, Jack, like his father, volunteered for the United States Peace Corps. Jack traveled to, lived in, served in Cameroon of Central Africa. He did this for 2 years. He worked with families to teach and develop personal budgets to help them survive with their limited resources. He also mentored impoverished youth, organized basketball leagues, and served to work with young people and help them get through their eventless days. Jack understood that service to your fellow human is how you change the world. Let me tell you about Jack the son. During the summer of 2008, Jack was playing professional baseball in Michigan. His beloved father, Jerry, had unfortunately passed away in March. Jack decided to retire from his professional baseball career to come home to help his mother, Sherry, run the family business. Mr. and Mrs. Nelson combined their love of journalism and their love of their local community by publishing a local newspaper called Nelson's Today for years. Jack loves and serves his family. What better could you say of a man? Finally, let me tell you my favorite story about Jack. It's about Jack the competitor. We were playing Wheaton North in a doubleheader at Wheaton North late in the spring. It was an important game. If we win the game, we probably win the conference for the third year in a row. If we don't win the game, Wheaton North probably wins the conference. Jack was our starting pitcher. We were up 1-0 most of the game. They tied it up in the bottom of the sixth. Wheaton North tied it up, and it was 1-1. When I would make a pitching change as a coach, I rarely had my mind made up when I went out. I would often talk to the catcher, talk to the pitcher, kind of get a sense for their state of mind. I met John Pasialis, who was the catcher, about halfway out to the mound. I took the ball from him. I said, how's he doing? John said, Coach, he's tired. He's short on his fastball. Okay. Get to the mound. I have the ball in my hand. Before I could say a word, Jack looks me straight in the eye and says, give me the damn ball. That was about all I needed to hear. Handed Jack the ball. I went down, sat down. We won 2-1 in another conference championship. That competitive spirit is why Jack is a successful man in this world. Jack Nelson is clearly a great baseball player, but when the day is done, baseball comes and goes. The lessons he learned on the field of play and that he applies to his life and that we apply to our lives is the true measure of a person. Jack Nelson, in a much more impactful way, is a Hall of Fame brother, student, humanitarian, son, and competitor. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my true honor and privilege to introduce the most recent member of the Wheaton Warrenville South Hall of Fame, Jack Nelson.
Thanks, Coach Quinn. It's really hard to follow. First, I hope my wife is one of the 4 people watching on the live stream back in California, so hopefully we're up to a couple more. But, you know, it's a funny thing about being so excited to be back at Wheaton South after all these years. Believe it or not, Coach Quinn mentioned my brother. He went to Wheaton North, and I was obsessed with the Falcons back in the day. I can remember when he was playing football and the football team would follow the marching band in and they would have a certain cadence that I can remember to this day. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I was a gym rat, would follow around, scratch together a couple of quarters, try and get a piece of pizza in the gym there, follow him around Bucama Field. I can remember just hoping and praying that the Falcons would finally beat the Tigers in football one year. The streak went on and on and on and on. Falcons never beat the Tigers while I was there, so that was really fun for me down the road. But there's so much disappointment back in the day that the Falcons couldn't beat the Tigers. But anyways, it's really strange to see the names and profiles of other inductees today. I mean, you know, Coach Brent, I just seeing him here. Coach Brennan, Dr. Baker, you know, Miss Wilcox, Coach Humay, Coach Muhich, Coach Thorne. I mean, these people have a tremendous impact on the community. They're what I consider to be legends in the community of Wheaton. And I'm just so lucky to be joining a club and affiliated with them at this point. I mean, it's just really, really humbling and an honor. And I'm kind of sad that Jerome Collins couldn't be here today, but if he ends up watching the live stream, I wanted to tell like a quick story about him, because you never really know as an athlete how people talk about you after you're gone. You know, whether they're talking about you in the same way that you thought about guys like Kelly Crosby or Ken Killian or like John Butcher or anything. So I remember walking in as a freshman and seeing guys like Jerome Collins walk around. And he was 2 years older than me, star athlete, world-class athlete, football player, track star. And I just said and thought to myself, holy crap, I got to compete against guys like that down the road? I mean, I got no chance, absolutely no chance. And it's really, really fun to be considered in the same class as Jerome, albeit in a different sport, obviously, because I was a pretty bad football player back in the day. I was filling gaps so Alan Rovick could make tackles as a linebacker back in the day. But for me, it's truly hard to look back and think about anything that I've done as truly like in those terms, like people would talk about me back in the day. Like I created my own legacy. I try and think about it in the terms of the way that I see the photos as I was flipping through them to get them for this PowerPoint. I'm a product of the Wheaton Youth Baseball Program, the Wheaton Travel Baseball Program. Playing with and alongside guys like Mike Alley and Alan, playing against Alan Rovick, Matt Schreff, my buddies Ryan Ransford, Steve Pike-Eye. I was a member of a lefty staff. If anybody remembers our team back in the day, we had a staff of 4 lefties, all in the rotation. I think in my junior and senior year, I can only remember maybe 2 right-handed pitchers throwing, Jeff Hayes and maybe Valentino. But other than that, almost every inning was a lefty staff. That's why you saw those goofy dads with goofy shirts on that said lefty dads. And Jerry Nelson casually sucking it in and trying to look good alongside, Mr. Brower and Mr. Schreff and Mr. Pike-Eye. I was part of a program that was one of the first teams to win 3 consecutive DVC titles, as Coach Quinn mentioned. And arguably the best conference in the state at the time, the DVC. A member of multiple regional championship teams. I think maybe the first time that our program had ever done that. But more importantly, I was a ball player in a program like Wheaton Warrenville South. Run by coaches like Coach Quinn, Coach Stell, Coach Kish. And literally, I'm not joking with you, but when I was a member of the program, every practice, after practice, they would talk about how you need to be a better person off the field than on the field. Check out with a handshake, take care of your business when you get home. As Coach Quinn mentioned, I was a member of probably what I consider to be a Hall of Fame family. We grew up with 2 incredible parents who devoted all of their time and resources in us 4 kids. Each of us were Hall of Famers in our own respect. It's just, I'm fortunate that there's a Hall of Fame here for Wheaton Warrenville South Athletics. But if you're a teacher or administrator here, as Mr. Baker was, he saw all of the Nelsons that came through Wheaton Warrenville South, and there was a Hall of Fame fine artist in my older sister, Laura Nelson. There was a Hall of Fame classically trained musician in my twin sister, Jennifer Nelson. My brother, basically a Hall of Fame pitcher at Wheaton North, had his record broken by my teammate, Danny Brower, for the ERA. I mean, incredible athlete, just an incredible family, really lucky. A member of this family, my parents, I was saying it earlier to my mom. We were the only family running around, practicing, driving around with an L screen on the top of our car, trying to find open fields so that we can take extra batting practice. And then I saw Mr. Wentland's minivan out in the parking lot, and he had a L screen on there. So there's 2 families, Mom, that drive around with L screens on the roof. My dad pioneered the art of using a wet dry vac and kitty litter to get the fields dry at Wheaton Central when the DuPage Tigers, his travel team, would play there. Just truly fortunate to grow up in the family that I did. It was a Hall of Fame family. And lastly, because I know there are other inductees, and I'm really privileged to be inducted with this group, was that, I've lived around the country and in a couple of foreign countries. And I think that, as Coach Quinn said, we're so fortunate to be members of this community here in Wheaton. You know, I've coached, you know, I've helped out with youth sports, and there's no other place that I've been where the fields are clean, they're unlocked, they're ready to use so that kids can practice, play, get better, and be a part of that community. You know, we've got dedicated parents that devote their time and resources to making sure the youth programs run. You know, Mr. Alley, Adam Pike, Terry Ransford, Carl Scheff, you know, Jeff Rovick, all these guys were devoting their time and resources to helping their kids, coaching their kids, precious time to helping them get better. We're just so lucky that they were here to help us out. And I'm getting a whiff of that now and getting a greater appreciation for it now that I'm doing it myself as a coach. And to our teachers and administrators, you know, Coach Quinn, Stell, Kish, Healy, Harvey, Mrs. Ferguson, Carlini, Valenti, Wentland, all these coaches and teachers that I remember, we're just so lucky that they're here. And it's a testament to the community that they're still here, and I can see their names still in the directory, and I run into them in the hallway, just as I'm here for only a few hours and now living across the country. You know, we're just extremely lucky, and I just wanted to convey my sincere thanks and appreciation for all they've done here, because without them, like, none of this would be possible. So thanks, Mr. Harvey, thanks, Mr. Healy, and to all the other members of the Hall of Fame committee for putting this on. It's really a pleasure and an honor to join everybody.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Jack. We would now like to bring Athletic Director Mike Healy back to the stage. He's going to introduce Dave Claypool. Mike Healy.
I know that this doesn't count yet. I know that most of the committee has a stopwatch on me right now. Kronk, set, go. It is my honor to induct and talk about Dave Claypool. Dave was a three-sport athlete in a small town called Niantic, Illinois, and went to a high school called Niantic Harristown High School. He was a three-sport athlete. He graduated from Eastern Illinois and then began teaching his career at Bloomington High School and then later at Reed Custer, where at both schools he coached football and girls basketball. He became the principal at Maine South High School in 2003. In 2010, after living in Wheaton for a long time, he made a decision to leave Maine South and become the principal at his hometown high school of Wheaton, Warrenville South. Dave came to South knowing the tradition of our prestigious high school needed to be reinvigorated in all aspects. Dave took Tiger Nation to another level. His support of the Wheaton, Warrenville South student athletes and our community showed all of us the important care and energy that is needed to truly maintain a successful high school. He would be at athletic or activity events almost daily, and not just varsity events. He would attend lower-level volleyball tournaments, softball games, wrestling matches, plays and musicals, and just about every sport and activity that Wheaton Warrenville South offered. He had a connection with all of the South coaches and sponsors that made all of us know he appreciated the hard work and time we put into the student-athletes of Wheaton Warrenville South. He made our jobs feel so important, and we all knew the respect that he had for what we did. The athletes knew as well. They found it energizing to see their principal at their events, not just watching, but usually cheering enthusiastically for their success. He would talk to them after games and events, thanking them for how they represented Wheaton Warrenville South. He was their principal, and they loved him for all he did for them. Dave had a special connection with our cheering sections at both football and basketball games. He would get them excited with his Tiger Nation chants, and they would often reciprocate with chants back of Claypool, Claypool, Claypool. They felt important to the success of their classmates. And once again, Dave made another group of students within Wheaton Warrenville South feel special and involved. In Dave's 10 years as principal of Wheaton Warrenville South, the Wheaton Warrenville South athletic teams won 16 IHSA state medals, 7 IHSA activity state medals, and a national championship in show choir. His impact on our athletic and activity communities was instrumental in those successes. But most importantly, he made students, athletes, coaches, teachers, and parents feel special. He made all of us feel that we were significant contributors to the success of Tiger Nation. He cared for all and gave his support to allow all of us to reach our fullest potential, whether as students, athletes, or coaches. People often say when they retire that they hope they left the place they are leaving in a better place than when they arrived. Ultimately, that was Dave's greatest accomplishment. His leadership helped recreate and re-energize Tiger Nation. His spirit and passion motivated all of us to be a part of a special, traditional high school. Dave, you left Wheaton Warrenville South in a great place, and we are all thankful for your 10 years of service to our high school. It is with great pride and pleasure to introduce my friend and mentor, Dave Claypool, into the Wheaton Warrenville South Hall of Fame.
He promised 307, it was 416.
Okay, we won't hold that against you. Well, thank you, Mike. I'm a little surprised, though. I thought that maybe a couple of the stories you would share, I just thought you'd have different stories to share. Like, for instance, the time we went to a playoff football game down in East St. Louis and took a detour through Hollywood. These are inside jokes, so bear with me, folks. Or the time we went to a playoff football game in Lincoln Way, and the next morning found ourselves in Peoria at the state track and field or cross country event. And there was that time that we went for that. Remember the Lifesaver commercial? We went for a Lifesavers walk. Mike and I did at Wheaton North High School. I put my arm around him. We went for a long walk where no one else could hear us, and we bonded. Let's leave it at that. It's nice to be on this stage again, to be honest with you. I'm sure Chuck felt the same way a few years ago when he was up here. Let me first give my thanks to the Hall of Fame committee. I know they've been thanked already, and get used to it. I got a feeling there's more to come. But I have a lot of friends in this group, and I want to make sure that they get their rightful pat on the back. Rob and Maureen, Guilty, Kronk, Casey, Jano, Ray, Viv, as well as Mike, Stell, and Lisa, kind of the young unsung person of all this who does a lot of the work behind the scenes. I also want to thank the entire athletic department at South, and I hope all of you do appreciate the work that goes into pulling this off. They go through a lot, and for those of us who have been around here since the Hall of Fame, there's a lot of angst and anxiety that builds up over the days leading up to this. So thank you all, because as Mike and others will mention tonight, events like this are central to maintaining the tradition of a great school, and this is a great school. My sincerest congratulations to the other inductees. You are the true stars of this evening. And I have to pat you on the back, even though I haven't met any of you yet. When I looked through your list of accomplishments, I thought, what in the hell am I doing here? It's humbling. And when Mike, called me up to ask me to be a part of this, I don't think I said anything for a minute. I thought he was joking, and I thought, man, it was April, but it wasn't April Fool's Day. And then he said, well, yeah, Dave, you kind of explained what this. I said, but Mike, I know who's in that Hall of Fame. I don't know that I deserve a place at their table. But I thought about it, and thought about some of the things that Mike had said, and have come to really appreciate just how, again, humbling this is, because it is that for sure. I was once told that you're only as good as the people you have around you. Well, let me tell you, I've had the best around me. Whether at home, at work, or with friends, I was in the company of people who cared for me, supported me, motivated me, and when needed, kicked me in the butt. Here at South, the coaches and athletes were incredible and consistently inspired me and made me proud, regardless of the outcome. But let's face it, we usually won, so. They represented our school with class and distinction, but that didn't come without significant pressure. I know they not only put their own names and reputations on the line when they competed, but, and Mike kind of alluded to this, they also carried with them the expectations, history, and tradition that is South. Thanks to all of you, I was lucky enough to cheer during my tenure. And no thank you at South would be complete without mentioning the buildings and grounds crew, Dewey-Hig and the boys, as we call them. They always had our facilities in top-notch shape, so while our kids competing wherever they may have been in our facilities, they were competing in first-class situations and experiences as well. So I want to thank those guys. Also, as I did mention some friends earlier, my Donato North circle of friends. We referred to ourselves as the Bubble, and the Bubble is represented here tonight. So, including our newest principal, who is an original member, an OG of the Bubble of Donato North, our new principal, Lori Campos. And guys, I know most of you here may not know Lori. One of the greatest things that has ever happened to this school was when she was named principal here at South. So if you would just please do that. But this group of friends who are still dear friends of mine, in fact, they kept me out way too late last night, they've been sounding boards because they're loyal, but they wanted to be honest. They wanted me to be successful. And so I leaned on them a lot. They inspired me. In fact, one evening when we were all together in our kitchen, one of them suggested that I start a Twitter account. This was in 2011. I didn't know what Twitter was, I don't think. I think I heard of it. And so I was a little intimidated by social media, as you can probably imagine. And so through the encouragement and some instruction and a couple of Tito's, we finally put together my Twitter account. And what was fascinating to me is just how successful that was as getting information to our students and parents. It just, I was blown away by it, and it was a huge part of my principalship, to be honest with you, because as was mentioned, I went to stuff a lot, and so I was able to report firsthand and take pictures and things like that. So it was a great vehicle, and that started with all my friends in the Bubble. I want to thank my assistant and dear friend Janet Lucky, who's here this evening. She was not only with me every step of the way, but she too loves her Tigers. But most notably, I want to thank my family. My beautiful, talented, and kind kids. Connor and Lauren are here with me tonight. I was able to drag Connor here from dreary old Chicago to be a part of this. And Lauren came here and joins us from Scottsdale, Arizona. They were students here when I was principal. I know there were times when that was trying and annoying, but I hope that in the end, I made you proud. I hope I made you half as proud as you made me. And then there's the co-creator of these two wonderful people. My love, my friend, my wife of 34 years, Katie. Kate's been my rock, an understanding partner, and tremendous mother to Connor and Lauren. As coaches and administrators, we know the hours away from home can seem endless. Katie unselfishly understood how important it was to me to be at events. And as Mike said, I was at something almost every night, and even on Saturdays. Katie, Connor, and Lauren, I love you very much. Thank you for being here. I recently heard someone say that athletics and the athletics department is the front porch to a school. The metaphor is a good one. For most people, it's the first thing you see or learn about a school. It's right out front for all to examine. And for South, athletics represents the best of who we are. It often sets the tone for the school year. It sparks enthusiasm and unity. It allows for bragging rights and even some fun with our friends on the north side of town from time to time. It generates pride among thousands of people that very few curricula ever achieved. No, I never scored a point for South, nor was I named All-State Athlete. I didn't lead a team to a state championship or even a non-conference win. I was a principal who wanted his students and coaches to know they were respected, appreciated, and loved. I wanted to celebrate our history, a history that very few schools can. And I did it to the best of my ability. I love being principal at South. And I'm glad I still have so many friends here. Thank you for this incredible honor. Semper Tigris.
I have the distinct honor of inducting Jerome Collins into the Wheaton Warrenville South Athletic Hall of Fame. Jerome's unable to attend this evening due to a family conflict that arose over the last few weeks. He sends his best wishes and congratulations to the other inductees. We look forward to celebrating with him and honoring Jerome at either a track meet, a basketball game, or a football game when he's available to return. After talking to many of his former teammates and coaches, they described Jerome as an absolute incredible athlete. I think many of them described him as a freak of nature. He was a true throwback three-sport athlete and star. As a coach right now, we do not see that very often anymore. We're lucky if we can get a kid to do 2 sports sometimes, not let alone 3. The 2000 graduate of Wheaton Warrenville South was incredibly successful and a well-rounded athlete. He was a member of state championship teams in football and track and field, multiple all-conference in football, basketball, and track and field. After his time at South, he accepted a scholarship to the University of Notre Dame and played football. In the spring of 2005, he was drafted in the 5th round. And then over his career, he was a part of 2 Super Bowl champions with the Colts and the Giants. As I said before, we look forward to celebrating this with Jerome and possibly his brother, who's also in the Hall of Fame, Jamar, at a later time. But we'd like to send our wishes. I hope he's watching in Texas, but congratulations, Jerome. It is my pleasure to bring to the stage Rob Kroenke, and as he hobbles up here, walks up here, he is taking the place of Bob Hoppenstadt, so I hope that Bob is watching this online. Bob was the original person to induct Jim Jones, but Bob's unable to be here tonight, so Rob Kroenke hobbled in, stepped in.
Thank you. Coach Hoppenstead, I know, is watching right now. I was a former player of Coach's, and he called me and asked me if I could do this for him. He's just not feeling up to it these days, and so I know he's home watching. But it is my honor to help Bob introduce Jim Jones for induction into the Wheaton Warrenville South Athletic Hall of Fame. Jim was an all-conference player for Wheaton Community, conference championship team in 1960. He played for Coach Al Doom, legendary coach, whom Jim said had the greatest impact in his life. He then went to South Texas Junior College and was part of a state championship team in 1962 and was voted first team All-State. He was named MVP of the Southern Zone Tournament and led his team to a victory over Temple Junior College with 30 points and 21 rebounds. The national tournament, which is still held there these days, is in Hutchinson, Kansas, where Jim broke a rebound record with 27 rebounds in a game. He was named an All-American candidate. In 1963, he received a scholarship to play for legendary coach Guy Lewis at the University of Houston. He started for 2 years at Houston, who was ranked in the top 25 for most of the year. In a game against Centenary, Jim scored 26 points and had 10 rebounds. His senior year, they beat Notre Dame, sorry, Phil, in the NCAA tournament and advanced to the Sweet 16. While playing semi-pro basketball in Houston, Jim was drafted into the U.S. Army. Jim was sent to Vietnam in December of '66 and was shot and almost died in January of '67. He received the Purple Heart and the Bronze Star with V for Valor for his service in Vietnam. Jim owned and directed a daycare with his wife Diane in Conroe, Texas for over 24 years before retiring to his ranch in Coleman, Texas. Please help me welcome a true hero, Jim Jones, for induction into the Wheaton Warrenville South Athletic Hall of Fame. Take as long as you want.
He said, how many? 10 minutes? I said, you have a Purple Heart. You got as much time as you want.
Oh, yeah, sure. Let's walk right over here.
Get some pictures over there, Mr. Jones.
There you go. It's all yours.
Well, y'all can tell that I'm not from here. I don't know how. But anyway, I moved to Wheaton in '58. I came from North Carolina, a poor part of the country. And my parents came up looking for better jobs, and they got them. And so we moved up, and that was in '58. I knew absolutely nobody. And then I bumped into a few friends my freshman year. The Fitzsimmons, one of them is your tonight, Tim Otis. And I sort of bumped into them and got in with the right group, and that's how I met Bobby Hoppenstead. I'd go to the Little League games, and Bobby would be there, and he and I would strike a conversation and talk. And after 58 years, I think it was, 58, 56, he calls me up. He calls Tim and gets my phone number. I said, Bobby Hoppenstead. I said, I know a Hoppenstead. I said, but I just couldn't put a picture, a face with it, you know. So anyway, I called him, and he refreshed my memory. And he told me, he said, you know, he said, you were always nice to me. He said, you didn't treat me like an underclassman. I think he was a freshman. He was at St. Francis at the time. You know, I told him, I said, hell, I was looking for a friend, man. I'd talk to a fence post, you know. Just, you know, I was looking for somebody to talk to. But anyway, Bobby and I ended up being good friends, and he's the one that got me into this. I'm not sure I belong there, but I fought like hell, you know. And when I was at Wheaton, we did good, and Coach Al Doom came in, which was a blessing. Two of his daughters are here tonight. Holly Mae. It's Holly and Sandy, and all his sons also here, Al Duke Jr. And I couldn't do this without biting some of the Dooms, because I used to always tell Miss Doom, you know, I could never call her Betty. I just couldn't do it. And I couldn't Coach. I couldn't call him Al. It was Coach Doom. And it was always Betty. No, it wasn't Betty. It was Miss Doom. And I just could never call her Betty. But she was always after me, because I told her one time before I got married, I told her, I said, you know, Betty, I said, I'm not going to get married. I said, I'm going to get me a good dog. And the first time I went up there, and she met my wife, who was sitting right down here in the orange, Diane. She met my wife, and she looked at me, and she gave me that wink. She said, I like your dog. But anyway, I used to always I told Miss Doom, I said, you know, you feed an old hound dog, they don't leave, they stay. And that's what they did to me. They were like a family to me, you know, and I enjoyed them, and I think they enjoyed me. They like listening to me talk anyway. But anyway, yep, I moved, and I lived on the north side of town. We rented, my parents rented a house from Mulefelt. It was right behind the windmill house. You know, where everybody knows where the windmill house is on Curie. He had some rental houses behind that house, and that's where my parents rented the house until I took off for college, and then they moved downtown. But and let me see. After I left Wheaton, I went to South Texas, and how I got to South Texas is a story. Coach Doom, one of his ex-high school players, was a coach down there. And I also had an offer to go to Tulsa. And I thought about Tulsa. And then I went and talked to my counselor, Mr. Lemon. And I admit it, I wasn't a good student in school. I never had any help. I just did it myself. But I did good enough that I never got on probation, and I never could not play, you know. And I remember the first year that Coach Doom came there, he said, Jim, I guess he looked at my grades. He said, I would like you to go to summer school. I said, that was like shooting me with a 2x4, you know. I said, Coach, I said, I can't do that. And he said, well, he said, if you fail a grade, you won't be able to play. I told him, I said, I won't fail, you know. I may not get an A plus or a B, but I'll pass. And that's what I did. But anyway, I went and talked to Mr. Lemon, and he said, well, Jim, you know, he said, maybe junior college is probably the better place for you. You have more individual help, and classes would be smaller. And that was right, it was. And I got to be good friends with the lady that was head of the English department, and you could tell I need a lot of help in English. But anyway, her name was Miss Hutchinson, and she was a sweetheart, and she helped me a lot. But the first year we were at South Texas, we didn't do real good. They didn't have any ball players. And then we got down there, and then the second year we had a real good team. We were ranked 5th in the nation, and we won our state championship, and had a real good time. And then I got an offer. I had offers to go about any place I wanted to go after after junior college. So my wife was going to, I never pay attention to that stuff. You know, I didn't care about being a star. I just wanted to play. If I could play, that was it. You know, that's as far, and I just never, if I'd have been more of a shooter, I think I'd have got more notice, but I never got to shoot the ball. Coach Doom told me, he said, "You're the only rebounder I got," and I got 4 other shooters. I said, "Okay, Coach." But I used to go visit Coach when he was in the nursing home up there in Grand Haven. I went up there every year for a reunion with the guys I was in Vietnam with, and I'd always go by and talk to him, and he always wanted to talk basketball, you know. But he was a good guy. Helped me out a lot, and I really appreciate him. And I know he's looking. He's laughing probably. Okay. Yeah, we won the regional that year. Coach already told you that. But the thing I really want to say is that I love Wheaton. Wheaton, my 4 years in Wheaton are probably some of the best years I ever spent in my life was in Wheaton. Because before I came here, I had nothing, you know, and I was just a little puny guy. I think when I started high school, I was about 5'6", you know, might have weighed 90-something pounds, I don't know, you know, but wasn't very big. But anyway, but Coach always told me, he said, "Jim," he said, "you never questioned me." He said, you always did what I asked you to do. And I said, "Well, that's what I was in there for, Coach, is to do what you asked me to do." So, and then after that, I went to South Texas, and then we played at South Texas, and then from South Texas, I went over to, my wife's going to kill me if I don't tell you. I broke a record with 27 rebounds, and after I played at the University of Houston, my second year there, beginning of my second year, my senior year, Coach Lewis called me over to the side, and he says, "Jim," "Yeah, Coach." He said, "I want you to shoot more." I thought, what is this? Shoot more, you know. No coach had ever told me to shoot more. I could shoot the ball. Coach Doom just never believed I could shoot the ball. My wife talked his ears off, and I don't think he still believed her. But anyhow, after I was at the University of Houston, I ran into a guy down, Marv Blumenthal. He was head of the Jewish Community Center. He was also a scout for the NBA. And he always told me, he said, "You come to the University of Houston," he said, I'll get you a tryout." And which he did. You know, I played my time there, and my time was up. Got a letter from, at the time they were the Baltimore Bullets. And I had a chance to go try out in their summer camp. Got invited to that. But everybody had always told me, get your education first. I'm the first person that ever went to college in my family. And I was always told by my teachers and my coaches and teachers, you know, don't forget your education. Get your education done. You know, so I was trying to get my education done. Then, the Army drafted me, and I went into the service. And of course, I got sent to Vietnam. I tried to get out. I tried to play basketball, but my company commander wouldn't let me go. And anyway, went to Vietnam and almost didn't make it back. I got a phone call on the phone, and this lieutenant was wanting me to do something. I didn't really want to do it. If I had to do it again, I'd tell him, "No, can't do it," you know. But anyway, for about 2 or 3 days in a row, we've been getting a lot of fire, small arms fire, because we would try to penetrate this one area in the jungle. And so when it come our time to go up there, I had some questions, you know. Why are we doing this? You know, I'm not the brightest bulb on a tree, but there's a little light in there, you know. And and he said, "Well," And we'd had a couple of guys got hit with some shrapnel, nothing real serious. But there was supposed to have been a clearing where a helicopter could land. And they wanted me to send a point. And a point is usually one guy, two guys, and they wander out and go try to find this place. But there's people out there shooting at you when you go wandering out there. So I was trying to talk to this lieutenant, and I wanted to tell him, well, why don't we just call some of them flyboys out there on those ships? Have them come in here and drop a few concussion bombs, and hell, we could walk in there. But they didn't want to do that. No, had to send some bodies up in there. So anyway, they called down and told me to send out a point. And I just couldn't do it. Because I always told those guys, I will not ask you to do anything that I won't do myself. So I went out and point with them, and we got in the crossfire and got shot up pretty good. And this one little fella, he was from Michigan, wrestler, all-state, never lost a match his freshman year. Clark Walker, they have a memorial for him every year up in Michigan, Bronson, Michigan. Clark was my friend, and before we went, we sort of made this little deal, you know, if you get in trouble, I'll come help you. Well, old Jim got in trouble, and he come up, and I'd already been shot in the left calf and through the sole of the right foot. And he come up, laid down next to me, and I told him to get out. I said, you leave, man. I said, we're okay. I said, we're going to come out right behind you. He said, no. He said, I come to get you out. And then he started firing, and they fired back, and he got killed. Taking me 49 years to stop crying for Clark. He was only 19. I was an old guy. I was like 23, you know. But Clark didn't make it back. There was a lot of them that didn't make it back. But I want you to know one thing. I was not a baby killer when I was over there. We sort of had that reputation. They call us baby killers and whatnot. But I'll tell you, the first experience I had with any Vietnamese out in the boonies, we was on a patrol, and we stopped to eat some of that stuff they called food, you know. And we were there, and I'm sitting there, and I'm opening a couple of these cans up to see what's in there. And these two little kids come out of this little grass, they call them a hooch, little grass shack. And they must have been, you know, 2, 3, little bitty things running around. And they saw me, and I held up a can. Oh, here they come. They come running over there, and I gave them some of those sea ration cans, you know, and sent them on their way. And they went right back to the little grass hut. They went in there, and they disappeared. And we were waiting to get the orders to move out, sitting there, and here come Mama's son. And she's got this little teapot, a little glass. She had some rice wine. She brought me some rice wine. And the guys told me, said, Jones, that old woman is going to poison you. I said, well, if she wants to poison me for loving her kids and giving them something, I said, then I guess that's the way I'll go. But I didn't go that way. The lady was a nice lady. But anyway, after I got shot and whatnot, I spent 14 months in the hospital, in various hospitals, trying to get well. I got shot next to the spine and on the left hip. And after I got out, I thought I could play ball again, but I couldn't play ball again. And then I thought I wanted to coach, and I did go back to the University of Houston once I got out of service, and they gave me a job. I coached a freshman for a year. But there was going to be a big turnover, and I could see the light, and I just didn't want to be a part of it because I knew I was going to be left, you know, because I was a new guy, you know. But anyway, and I tried coaching in high school, too much politics, you know, a lot of politics. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be for the kids, like y'all do here. It should be for the kids. When I was coaching basketball, I coached junior high, junior JV team. And I remember one day this kid came up to him. I called him Alphabet because I couldn't pronounce his name. He had a name about a year long. And one day he came up to me and he said, "Coach Jones." I said, "Yeah, Alfie, what you want, buddy?" He came up to me and he said, he said, "I know I'm not a good basketball player." And he says, "I really appreciate you letting me play." But hell, he came to all the practices. You know, he worked as hard as the rest of them worked. And hell, I wasn't looking for a championship. I was just trying to teach them something, you know. But that was the best, you know, I guess remark or whatever that he gave me. And that was nice. And I've always remembered that. I've always remembered that. But I have some friends here tonight that I invited to come. Some couldn't come because of health reasons. Bobby Hopkins did, he couldn't come. But I have some friends here. My girlfriend right there, Miss Anastasia. Well, my wife's there in the orange, right there in the front. "I'm leaving you out. I got to go back. Hey, I got to fly in an airplane with her for about 3 hours. And she's tough, man. We've been married for 56 years. I don't know how she's done it. She tells me all the time I'm only 12 years old. Well, hell, that leaves me a lot of territory, man. 12 years old? I can get in a lot of trouble being 12 years old. But I think that's about it. I thank you. And all you people that put this on, it's great. Thank you.
I'll walk you down.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say before they flipped it, you look just like your picture, like I told you out there in the comments. All right, to introduce Ted Carlson, we'd like to bring to the stage Kevin Strom.
Kevin Strom, class of 1977, this one right here. Before I start my remarks, I'd like to say thank you for being the tip of the spear, Jim. Seriously. I think you said I fought like hell, athletically, and on the field of battle, and you listened to your coaches. I'll get back to coaches later. I'm here to introduce a friend of mine of over 50 years, Edwin Ted Richard Carlson. I will tell you that the two of us are probably the odd people out in this room because of that. We kind of feel like the tiger got lost, turned into a wolverine, and then ended up on this corner as a tiger again. We're glad. It's a little different. It's a little weird. But I think in our hearts, we're still tigers. Ted and I have known each other for over 50 years. We met in middle school here in Wheaton. And our parents knew each other as acquaintances, not that well. Our moms both graduated from Wheaton College, and they knew each other. They graduated in the early 50s within a year or two of each other. And it seemed to me at the time that there were some people that my parents didn't want me to hang with, and there were other people that were safe. It's probably the best word I could come up with. I think for Ted and his family, my family was safe. For me and my family, his family was safe. And so when I said I was going to go hang with Ted, no problem. It was safe. The thing that I think about when I think about Ted often is that we are two like-minded individuals. I think we're like-minded in life. I think we're like-minded in sport. And we're both men of faith. There's a whole lot of things I like about Ted. There's one thing I'll get to that I don't like about Ted. Things I like about Ted. Ted is meticulous. Ted was a hurdler that went downstate. Have you ever tried to hurdle? If you're not meticulous, that hurdle will get you. Your steps have to be really important to you. It's different. Low hurdles, intermediate hurdles, high hurdles. There was a time when Ted tried to get me to hurdle. I will remind you that in the 1970s, the track at Wheaton Central High School was a cinder track. If any of you know where cinders come from, they come from the burning of coal, and they are the leftover of a sand and glass-like material that I think some smart guy or gal in the early 1900s said, these dirt tracks aren't so good because we're tracking dirt everywhere, and they don't drain very well. So they got the brilliant idea of putting cinder down. So Ted tries to get me to hurdle, and the way they did it is for practice. This wasn't a meet, it was practice. Put three or four hurdles out there, and let's work on your form. So I got kind of amped up, and I went over a few hurdles, and I literally got over 4 hurdles, and I thought, holy cow, I got over those hurdles. I didn't hurt myself. Let a little time go by, did it again. I got over the first hurdle. My front leg, my lead leg, got over the second hurdle. My knee and my rear leg, part of my leg, didn't quite make it. That changes your trajectory just a little, and instead of going to the next hurdle, you are hurled at speed towards the ground, which was cinder. I hit my head, I hit my hands, I hit my knees, and I think I jumped up and told Ted that I would never, ever be a hurdler. He tried again in college because we ran track in middle school together, in high school together, and at Wheaton College together. That was a formative time of our year, of our life. And I watched Ted a lot. The other thing that jumped into my mind about things that I like about Ted is that he was fearless. He would attack those hurdles. He would attack a 440-yard dash. That's how old we are in high school. In a fearless manner. I came from running the mile and the 880, and those were kind of right on the edge of a speed race and a distance race. And I was taught, get your form down properly. Everything needs to move in motion properly this way. Sprinters and football players, they do another thing, especially football players. And then Ted came along, and Ted, in his fearless attacking manner, if you see some of these pictures of him, he was way up here, and that guy had a motor like I had never seen before. So I always kind of thought for years that I pushed Ted from behind. I think Ted pulled me from in front. He led the way. Ted also had a sense of humor. The coaches told us that we needed to stay in shape, and so we had to run in the fall in cross country. We were not built to run cross country. I don't know how they do it today, but back then there were 7 cross-country runners on the varsity team. And the 1, 2, 3, and 4 guys, they were pretty good. Some of those guys would go downstate at distances. But then there was 5, 6, and 7. And Ted and I and a guy named Kelly, we were 5, 6, and 7. And to show Ted's sense of humor, we voted in the middle of the race who would be 5, who would be 6, and who would be 7. And then the next time we had a meet, we would shift it around. Somebody else would be 5 or 6 or 7. This went on for a couple of years. The other thing that I like about Ted is he's a great storyteller. If you get him started talking about Wheaton Central or Wheaton College and track, it will be a long conversation, I promise you. There's one thing that I disliked about Ted. To this day, he was always faster than me. Is it okay to say that? I think we should say thank you to the coaches as well. You all know Coach John Thorne. You know him as this incredible football coach. I knew him as a young man, as a track coach in the 1970s. There's another guy in college named Don Church. Bubba was his nickname. Those 2 men and their staffs somehow figured out how to turn boys into men. I will always be appreciative of that. So you know some things about Ted the athlete. You've seen maybe in the program or up there, incredible athlete, right? And that's one of the big reasons we're here. But I also know Ted the human, and I've known him for 52 years. We both lost our dads in the last few years. I lost my dad and had COVID at the same time. This is the letter I got from my friend, Kev. Several years ago, you and some of the other Wheaton College athletes, track guys, of course, sent letters of encouragement to me at a time when I had slipped into a very gray and lifeless routine. It wasn't exactly a crisis, but it was not, I was not on a good trajectory either. That simple action by you guys, the action you took, made a huge difference in my life. Now it's my turn. I've known you longer than almost all of my friends. Edison Junior High to our 60s. We did 10 years at the same schools together, on the track, and doing a lot of the same things. I can't think of anyone else in that same category. We stood up in each other's weddings, spent countless hours together over the decades. To say that you've been a good friend, which Ted has been to me, is a massive understatement. Over all those years, you've remained the same guy. So has Ted. You've always been fun-loving, not shallow, generous to a fault. So is Ted. Calm and thoughtful in a storm. So is Ted. A kind-hearted truth teller and someone who can be both content and visionary at the same time. And so is Ted. You wear well over the long haul, thank you. And that's a great attribute that's highly underrated. So do you. My wife Gretchen talked to Ted in the midst of my dad's death and my crappy bout with COVID. And he says, Gretchen's words that you have a broken heart and a broken body right now really hit home to me. Given what I've heard about COVID, I suspect that you've never felt sicker, and we now share the experience of saying goodbye for now to our dads. I expect you will get your health back, but that kind of a battle on top of everything else is really rough. Your heart is another matter. I don't miss Dad in my day-to-day life, probably because we haven't lived in the same town for over 30 years. But I still get hit with waves of emotion at unexpected times. Both of our dads experienced things early in life that we cannot possibly understand. Neither of them was ever going to be in danger of talking too much or overusing the word feelings. They were of a generation that tended to bottle things up and just keep going, mostly without explanation. There are so many unresolved things that are now carried into eternity. That is the loss that I think we feel that will stab us from time to time until we get there ourselves. I don't have any great answers, and I'm pretty sure that I don't really understand our issues, except that it's part of what the good Lord came to make right again. It's different for all of us, but it all sits within the same framework of loss. All that to say that I share your pain, I hurt for and with you, and I hold on to the certainty that there is a great day coming when God will make everything right and brokenness will be healed. I'd like to introduce to you now Edwin Ted Carlson, one of the very few people in my life who understands the true definition of being a friend.
Man, how do you follow that? How do you follow, Mr. Jones, what you had to say? I should talk into a microphone, huh? I was a history major in college. I read lots of military history, and I read it for one reason. I read it because I want to know how ordinary people do extraordinary things under the worst conditions. That's what fascinates me, the strategies and all that stuff. And you're it. So it was worth the drive just to hear you talk. And Kevin, wow. You know, I'm always a little nervous when my friends are handed a microphone and told to talk about me. I didn't expect that. And you are, you know, we kid around. We're brothers from different mothers, and we really are. So thank you so much for coming. And having to work to be here, you know, having to change flights and all that to be here, so I appreciate it. So I took note of the agenda. I saw that I'm the last thing between you and dinner. I thought that I had better write out my comments. Thank you, Kevin. You sold me right. I do talk a little too much. So I'm going to try and get through this in the allotted time span, and we'll get to dinner here. So it's an honor and a pleasure to be here tonight. I wanted to start by thanking the Hall of Fame committee for inviting me in and putting on this event. I appreciate the opportunity to publicly thank a number of coaches and friends who played such an important role in a really critical time in my life. During much of the 1960s, my family lived in Hong Kong, and we moved back to Wheaton when I was a third grader. And sports immediately became the center of my world, because that's what all the kids in my neighborhood did. And where we lived, there weren't any other kids. We were the only English-speaking kids on our island. Wheaton was a great place for sports. And even though my direct involvement in competing or coaching ended when I was 25, the rest of my life has been deeply influenced by that relatively short period. I haven't lived in Wheaton for over 30 years, but my roots go very, very deep here, and this will always be my hometown. I walked in here a little bit earlier, I looked in the trophy case, on the far left is a graduation program. My grandfather was the speaker, 1916. 1947, my father was the commencement speaker at his graduation. Me, not so much. They do better. We could always find a pack of guys to go over to Whittier School to play baseball or to Kelly Park for football. And the old Pony League field on Main Street was the place to hang out on warm summer evenings and watch a little baseball. And in the fall, you could step out of our house on Wheaton Avenue and you could hear the roar of the football crowd or a soccer crowd, and you could hear Mr. Morrow on the PA announcing things. So it's just a great place to be. My dad was a great first coach, even though about the only sports advice I can remember from him consisted of just get out in front and don't let anyone pass you. And that was about the extent of his knowledge of sports. You know, my sports world was a mystery to him, but he really loved me and he encouraged me, and even though my interests were not the same as his. And my mom also did what she could to support me. She never came to one of my wrestling matches because she warned me that she couldn't be held responsible for her actions. I wasn't entirely sure what she meant by that, so I was really happy that she stayed home. But she did go to a lot of track meets, and she could do anything she wanted, and that was just fine. School, by definition, is a place of preparation and learning, and many of the most important lessons for me came in the context of sports. When I got to middle school, I quickly discovered that while I might have been the fastest kid in my neighborhood, that was no longer true in the big world of Edison Junior High. There was this kid there named Dana Noel, and he was in another league. And then there were 3 or 4 other kids who were at least as fast as me. So I did the math and decided that my future as a sprinter was really limited. So without intending to, Dana Noel convinced me to become a hurdler. And Larry Leidenbach and Miles Lowry, who were coaches at Edison, did a great job of teaching me some really sound fundamentals. Dana was really important in my learning curve and success. I was very self-conscious. I was pretty insecure, and Dana was not at all. He was ultra confident, and he backed it up with his performance. And sometime in high school, Dana's example started to rub off on me, even if my style was definitely lacking compared to his. He brought energy and drive to every team, and I certainly benefited from being around him. Larry Leidenbach also got me started in wrestling in 8th grade, and for most of high school, I considered myself to be a wrestler first and a runner second. John Fuller and Bruce Larson were my high school wrestling coaches, and they helped develop a toughness in me that did not come naturally. Coach Fuller pushed us hard. Dragging ourselves across the mat doing low crawls at the end of practice was physically and mentally exhausting. Didn't make me any faster, but it made me a whole lot tougher to beat. The most valuable thing I learned in wrestling was that if you ever wanted to do anything of significance, I had to push myself harder and dig deeper than I really wanted to. The best way I can explain it is that in running, when it gets tough and you're really hurting, you can always ease up a little bit and usually you will start to feel better. In wrestling, the opposite happens. If things aren't going well and you back off, it's almost guaranteed to get worse. Coach Fuller taught me what it takes to win, not so much in wrestling, where my results were never really all that exceptional, but certainly in track and field and in countless other areas of my life away from the sports arena. Jerry Lonergan, our track coach at Central, taught me an almost contradictory lesson at the same time: how to have fun in the big moments. Coach Lonergan believed that we could be really good, and he talked to us like we already shared that belief. I don't remember him ever giving us a pep talk or trying to fire us up. He just freed us up to go out and run fast. Coach had this crazy idea that we could have a good 440-yard relay team in spite of the fact that we only had one legit sprinter, a couple of hurdlers, and this new kid who had some raw talent but very little experience. If you took our combined 100-yard dash times and put them next to the other two Wheaton high schools, I think we probably would have been third out of three. But Coach came up with this unorthodox strategy so that Dana Noel would end up running as close to 130 yards with a stick as we could legally come. And the rest of us, Adrian Lister-Tillman, Kelly Kammeyer, and myself, had very specific roles to play. It was a risky strategy, but it worked. We won the county, we won the conference and the district, and I think we set records in all three of them. We made it all the way to the state finals and got sixth. This area was absolutely loaded with good high school hurdlers, and several of them were also around here in college. And familiarity didn't breed contempt, it bred respect. The combination of John Linder from St. Charles High School and North Central College, Mark Rao from Glenbard West and COD, and Chris White, who's right there from Wheaton North, made each one of us better. High school track was great, but college offered endless possibilities, even at a small college like Wheaton. The environment there that I stepped into was absolutely perfect for me. My coaches, Don Church, Bubba, that Kevin mentioned, and Greg Gorsuch, both saw track as a vehicle for getting out into the bigger world. And I had this teammate named Danny Henderson, who was proving that becoming a world-class runner was possible anywhere, including a place like Wheaton. During the summer of 1978, after my freshman year, Coach Church assembled a team of about 30 athletes from all over the U.S. to travel behind the Iron Curtain to compete in places like Czechoslovakia, Romania, Yugoslavia, and Romania. We ran in some elite meets with Olympic medalists and also on cinder tracks against club teams. As a skinny 19-year-old, I didn't run particularly well, but I came back with an entirely different mindset. I learned how to perform even when I was scared to death, and that's helped me far beyond my running days. Our purpose was to use our standing as athletes to support and encourage the church in those Soviet-dominated countries. Overt Christian activity was all but impossible in Eastern Europe. But as athletes, we were given some latitude to openly participate in church meetings and encourage believers who often faced difficult circumstances because of their faith. There was relatively little risk for us to travel there, but the Christians we met were putting everything they had on the line. Running under pressure was nothing compared to what they experienced every day. 2 more track trips to Eastern Europe in 1983 and 85 provided additional experiences that continue to influence my perspective on the world to this day. It's a long, long way from a dirt track at Edison Junior High or an obsolete 1/5 of a mile cinder track at Wheaton Central. It's foundational to who I am as a person. So it's no understatement to say that I am eternally grateful for my childhood growing up at Wheaton, going to Wheaton Central, Wheaton College, and the coaches and teammates who molded my life. In the end, the results and awards that come from sports pale by comparison to the rich experiences and friendships that make it all worthwhile. So, thanks again for inviting me back home for this.
So as we close out our 2023 induction ceremony, we look forward to the 2024 one, which will be homecoming. We believe that's going to be it has not been set yet, but we believe that's going to be late September, early October of 2024. I'd like to thank all the presenters, all the inductees for your memories and stories. You brought those pictures to life, and we always sit here at the end, the committee always does, and we always look back and we think, well, you know what? All that work was worth it, because it was. So thank you very much for everything you've done for the communities of Wheaton and Warrenville in representing us in the highest manner. And we're honored that you could spend the afternoon with us. We need your help with being able to tell more stories. So I had a conversation with Ron Muhich last week, and we talked about maybe a future inductee. And Ron's going to get something together for me, right, Ron? Yes, you are. Okay. And I know I've talked to several people. I know people on the committee have as well. But we need to tell more stories. So thank you. Everybody is invited to have dinner out in the Commons. I'm assuming it's out there and ready to go. At 6:35, 6:40, Rob Kroenke will gather the inductees, those who wish to go out to the field to do the first coin toss. And that'll happen about 6:50. Families, you're more than welcome to stay in here, gather, talk, as long as you want. And but we thank you very much for celebrating this great event with us. Thank you.